Hey, is this your laptop? Yeah, mine. You're doing the production. You're doing the production. Okay. How soon was the first presentation?
10 minutes.
No, how soon was it from when you started?
10 minutes.
Within 10 minutes, you need to training. Then we'll leave the projector on, or do you want to turn it off later? I'll give it to you.
Even have some.
Perfect.
We can move it like this. This will be okay. You will stand here. Okay, guys. Table. No.
Here should be good enough. Here should be good enough.
Is this okay? Okay, check.
Right here. Are you going to be standing right here or there?
I will stand
Remember,
here.
that's the light. Yeah. Turn it on when you're ready.
Hi everyone, just taking a look if the mic is good. James, can you hear me behind that? All good? Good evening, everyone. I'm Lavina De Silva. You might have seen the posts coming in from me. Most of you may know me from the posts going on this event. It's a true pleasure to invite you all today to Quadrant Technologies. Our flagship event series is Tech Connect, and the conversation today is centered towards transforming business applications, especially through AI-powered automation. Today's agenda is packed with wonderful insights and an amazing panel. And then we're going to be talking about things from embedding AI into enterprise workflows to building AI native applications and preparing organizations for the next generation of AI powered automation. So before we dive in, I would like to call in one of our leaders today, Mr. Ram Paluri, to give us a quick few words. Ram? I thought you were on this side. This side. Okay. Okay. Just make sure we.
Good evening, everyone. So even I would like to invite my partners also here so that we'll talk one by one. So Vamshi Reddy and Bhaskar, please come here. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today. So though it is a weekday, so it's really excellent to see you all. Thank you so much. So and again, thanks for accepting our invite for coming and accepting the speakers and panelists. Indrajit there, thank you so much, and also Ravi, thank you so much. Pramod and Bhavresh and Eden, thank you so much. And also thank you so much, Prakash, for organizing this one and come up with the plan and the business application and AI-powered automation topic. Thanks, Lavina, for coordinating this effort. As you all know, Quadrant we started almost more than a decade back. And again, uh, we came to this level with the efforts and again like a excellent coordination from our partners, my Vamshi Reddy and Bhaskar, Penny Pamela. Thank you so much for all your efforts here. And again, today we're going to start the session. I don't want to take much time here, and just I would like to pass the mic to Vamshi and Bhaskar to say a few words about it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Good evening. Thanks to all the speakers who are here. We have all the industry leaders from all the pan companies. Thank you very much for taking time. And then we do events like this to help the community and also our own employees. And this is the nice juncture we are at, like between AI taking over or we taking over an AI. So would love to hear from the leaders to see how we are prepared and take advantage, or we are still taking control of our AI. But thank you all for coming and looking forward to hear from the leaders.
Thanks, Vamshi. Thank you for all coming for the, I know it's a weekday, but I know the importance of AI nowadays. Now, anything on AI topic, we see a lot of crowd. So that's very, very important nowadays, and how we are transforming the industry with the AI is definitely, we all need to know the, especially from all the business leaders here. Thanks all for all the speakers and the panel speakers. Thank you very much and all the best. Thanks everyone. So we conduct a lot of events on different topics. AI is one of them, very important for all of us. And again, today's topic is different. Again, business application and AI powered automation. But again, we started this program as a Quadrant Tech Connect. Again, you'll see more events like this going forward also. So yeah, thank you so much for excellent coordination and cooperation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Ram, can we greet the guests? Yes. So part of our tradition is to welcome our distinguished speakers and panelists today. And I would like to just ask Bhaskar, Vamshi, and Ram to show our gratitude and appreciation to all of you. So we have Indrajit Dev, Ravi Krishnaswamy, Pramod Raghavendran, Bhavnesh Rangarajan, and Eden Cohen today with us. And of course, our very own advisor from Quadrant, Prakash Nagarajan.
Eden, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Take one picture
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I don't need a formality.
I'm asking.
Yeah. Thanks, Bhavnesh.
Thank you, everyone, for lending your voice and thoughts for today. We really look forward to hearing you all speak. Just before we go ahead and start with our very first keynote session, I would like to take a time to focus on the topic that we have today. Our speaker sessions today are focused on the AI-powered enterprise, redefining business applications. Enterprise software is undergoing a seismic shift, We're moving from need to have or somewhere around towards mission control. And I think I see a lot of heads nodding on that one. So, what's driving this momentum? 75% of large organizations have moved at least one of their applications using AI at the moment. And we have seen that IDC reports Gen AI initiatives yielding an average of 3.7 times the ROI. What's driving this momentum? Industry leaders like Microsoft, Google, Salesforce are embedding AI co-pilots and intelligent agents, if I may say, directly into their core CRM and ERP platforms. These tools aren't just making things faster. What they're doing is they're fundamentally reshaping workflows. We're looking at improved decision making as well as enabling new levels of personalization and efficiency. So, in today's keynote sessions, we are going to hear from our distinguished leaders who are in the forefront of this transformation. They'll help us understand that it's not just about technology anymore, it's about the real strategic value. We are looking at elevating employee productivity to delivering intelligent, personalized customer experiences at scale. So our very first speaker today is going to be Indrajit Deb. Indrajit Deb is the Senior Vice President for Unified Agentforce Platform at Salesforce and priorly was the CTO for Intelligent Apps at Microsoft. Indrajit is a visionary tech leader with over 2 decades of experience, shaping intelligent enterprise applications, AI platforms, and large-scale digital transformation initiatives. He brings in a unique blend of technical depth and engineering at scale, architecture and operational foresight, as well as a pragmatic, customer centric mindset to every innovation challenge. Having led both globally distributed engineering teams on complex cloud SaaS modernization efforts and then architecture across platform and applications portfolio, Indrajit has constantly delivered high impact solutions that unify platforms, enhance scalability, and enable AI as a change agent. He's passionate about advancing the future of AI and especially in business application space to empower organizations on their AI-led digital transformation journeys and driving responsible innovation that creates real value at scale. Today, he'll take us through a very important topic, AI and agentic transformation, managing the hype pragmatically. Indrajit? Pass the mic to you.
Thank you, Lavina. We can dive straight into the session and the slides. Is that what are we doing, Lavina?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can start.
So just take a moment.
So while that's coming up, keep in mind, I'm going to take a very specific perspective today. I've always done architecture leadership in my last couple of roles. And so my goal has been to see if we can find ways to cut through the hype and talk about the things that really work, practical solutions, et cetera, et cetera. Because it's from my own personal experiences when things don't work right, when people are not buying into the hype, when they are trying to deploy, things are not working, they escalate, and sometimes, or most of the time, the escalations come to my doorstep. So I kind of learn the hard way to help them out, cut through the hype, find ways to get them to be successful with the product truth that already is out there. So we can always chase the future, but the reality often is to do the best and make the art of the possible with what's out there. So with that, let's get started. If you can get us to the next slide. Clearly, we are here because we are interested in application of AI in the business application space, and why not? Compared to most other spaces, clearly there are scenarios. There is the high impact and value if you deploy them. And clearly there is lots of dollar budgets for the outcomes that are assigned to this. So clearly a very lucrative sought after space in that sense. You will hear the most transformation leaders trying to give you a sense for the levels of transformation that you can. And here are a couple. One of them is people talk in terms of the complexity. So there's on the complexity scale of increasing agentic complex implementations, you can find yourself there in the journey, and you start at the one end and you translate and grow up to the other end. The second might be, if you can get to the next slide, is along the lines of autonomy itself, which kind of captures a bit of complexity in its ways. It just talks about, hey, what if you kind of graduate from just human assistants to humans and agents teaming up to largely getting more autonomous agent-led systems doing their own thing with very little assistance from humans. We'll talk a little bit about the last two a little bit more. But how do we approach this transformation, right? One of the ways, if you go to the next one, is that both organizations and people who are enabling them have to think in terms of orders of magnitude. Often in how much they need to put in, how much they need to plan, how much they need to expect in terms of going into this. It's like, how do we get to the next X word multiplier of where you are at? How can we deploy, for example, in this case, agentic systems at scale? And based on that, you'd make the right choices. Next slide, please. One of the first choices you might have to make is when you're talking about applying agentic transformation, build agentic systems at scale, is to choose some sort of an agent platform that helps you do that. So there are two things you can do, right? In business application space, you can spend most of your energies behind the domain you're in and try to focus on the problems and optimization dollars on that. Or you can do all the heavy lifting on the platform side. So why would you do the heavy lifting on the platform side? So maybe you should choose a platform that does most of the heavy lifting for you, and then you focus your energies on the domain side of the problem, because there is enough domain-specific things to solve in every subdomain of business applications. So if you have, stay back for a second, there's a list of things that you can think of that it has a proper agents builder with instructions and guardrails. It has a concept of knowledge and a data ecosystem in terms of actions, connectors, etc. It allows workflows. It has agent apps. This might be an interesting, controversial word. We'll talk about it later more. And of course, importantly, we'll talk about the next as well, the management and operational management of agents. And of course, governance and security. And finally, for most people here interested here, a growing ecosystem of the agentic world there. Next, please. No session is complete without talking a little bit in terms of architectural diagrams. So it's a very high level thinking here. Like when you think of agents, you definitely need some sort of an orchestrator, maybe an optional user experience. But the key things are on the right-hand side, if you account for the fact that foundation models are assumed it's going to be there, and the agents have to give you options to choose between them. So clearly, you need enabling your own knowledge data sources and dragging through that for grounding in memory. You need a whole suite of tools that allows you to do all sorts of synchronous and asynchronous actions, prompting, code gen, etc., including using old style computer use agents and RPA that used to be there before that. Clearly, you want to have capability on the autonomy side in terms of planning triggers, exceptions, and self-learning. Again, just a small example of things. And do not forget that management and agent ops are probably even more critical once you have the basic ingredient in place. So having said that you got to think big, but there has to be a way to start somewhere, right? Practically, where do we start? So on that, let's start with the human assist scenario. It's a no-brainer, right? Because the reason it's a no-brainer is because it starts where your current setup is, and you have humans doing a bunch of work for you. They are in their current roles, sometimes domain-specific roles or the generic roles. Most vendors are bringing in AI-based assistants and agentic assistants directly into the existing surfaces. That means you don't necessarily have to change much. You start there, it starts aiding your existing human roles and their workflows. It improves their productivity, and it's something that you can easily start to see adding value. It may not be very easy to just measure them, but the impact is there based on the use case. So that's a great place to start, right? You can start there, and there is a lot of good options out there. The next might be that you have a lot of laborious repetitive tasks. There is a lot that used to say BPO, outsource, and they are right for simpler programmatic automation, but they also were recently unlocked by some of the advent in generative AI, because those kind of things you could not do before, even in the automation world, and now it's unlocked. Go for it. And those kind of use cases are usually highly reliable based on where the maturity of the generative AI tech is, and the value is still kind of clear because the use cases were there. You were already kind of maybe outsourcing them, but the total impact to the organization might be medium to low, not that great. So that's there. That's great, right? It's a decent value to start with, but agents were supposed to do even more. It kind of really go into your high value critical workloads. So that's where the rub is. That's where the friction is. That when you get into this high, medium human skills kind of domain, which you have to do a lot of training of the humans to get them to do the right things for you in your particular domains and business expertise, it's that kind of thing that results in more high to medium agent complexity implementations. Clearly, there is involved reasoning and complex decisioning involved. There is always the chance that it's going to push the boundaries of the AI tech that is already there. Reliability can be affected because it's just on that edge of the complexity. Since it involves critical tasks, there is always higher risk. There is a problem of oversight and monitoring that you have to solve, because these things that tend to be not reliable have to be overseen, monitored, corrected, fixed. You will need fallback mechanisms for it, and one should go in expecting things to fail, right? And planning for it and having mechanisms to recover from them. So it's not easy, but there are ways. There are things that we have learned, and there are things people have learned around the industry around how to potentially mitigate many of these things. So you have to start with some pragmatic design choices, right? You should exhaust all deterministic options before you try to make some process agentic. What I mean by that is, if you have a programmatic way, a rule-based thing to go implement, and that works 100% of the time, why even try to make it agentic? Just be there and make it part of some other agentic process. Just use it, basically, right? If you have things that are having the complexity where it is something that you can manage and it can be coded in and made deterministic, always do that first. So that's the idea. So make sure you use that. Your existing automation workflows, if they are working fine, no need to reinvent them. Just use them, right? There's no need to reinvent them into agentic workflows. But if you have to get there, make sure instructions for the agents that you're building are clear. It is able to validate the intent when it's not clear, and that's part of building the scope, building the flow. The other thing that we have found is that when the scope of any given agent is not focused, it's too large or variable, it can do hallucinating things or things that are inaccurate at a small level or even higher level. So use focused agents, multiple agents, use multi-agent patterns to connect them, to keep them focused on their areas, and use delegation as methods, for example. Right? You have to reuse your proven tools. If you have APIs, if you have asynchronous workflows, synchronous workflows, use them. Don't reinvent them to be agentic. Let agents use them instead. Do the heavy lifts in your actions. That means if you have actions, make sure that they are very clearly semantically described with a particular purpose, and then they are doing the heavy lifting instead of the orchestration is done by the agent for that case. The other thing that we have learned the hard way is that don't use just tools to auto convert your APIs, your connectors to something that agent can target. The moment you do that, it might lose the semantic meaning that needs to go with it. And you might find through testing that the relevance is not matching. When something is supposed to hit a particular target, when an intent is there, it's not hitting it. So just don't use the tools to convert and say it's done and it'll do it. It is very important to describe and decorate those tool sets for its intent, for its semantic meaning and purpose. Without doing that, you'll run into issues. And more importantly, validate with a lot of historical transactions, so you get the confidence. But that's not it, right? Because this is just before you deploy something. Now, the next thing is the way you have the choices you've made in terms of the agent platform and the way you've designed them. Make sure it's ready for human agent ops and incremental success. What do I mean by it? Next slide. No matter what the maturity of the agentic platform is, it'll evolve, it's going to get better, but you are going to deploy today. So you have to account for things that can go wrong. So you have to enable human in the loop design. You have to enable pauses, escalations, resumptions, because that's going to happen and you have to anticipate, and your design is ready for it. So the agents should be able to pause itself, escalate to a human, ask for help, and resume, basically, right? More importantly, you might want to have a parallel path for humans to do the same actions that an agent can do. So don't deploy any business process for which there is no other manual human way to do it, right? Especially if it's a critical task. You might have to enable the human takeover of those process objects or those instances of transactions. You have to have the flexibility of humans and agents co-orchestrating together. Like some parts are being done by humans, some parts are being by agent, because some parts you might realize is that agent is not ready for. You might have to back out those steps and say, okay, not assigned to the agent yet, still assigned to the human, because it is more complex in terms of reasoning and decisioning, and we're not getting it right too many percentages of time. This goes back to, again, the fact that we have to continue to have oversight and monitoring on these roles and with roles and applications. That means human roles have to be trained specifically to have oversight and monitoring abilities on top of the agents that you're deploying. So in some sense, you might actually have to introduce more human roles before you can think of making more productivity happen through agents where those humans can do something else. You want to make sure there are dials to increase or decrease the human's involvement in the process loop. The next thing is you have to make sure before you when you go to production, there is a possibility that you're measuring the A/B test across the human run and the agent run versions of the same process. And you'll then get into this constant measure, learn, improvement loop. So it is going to be a bit of a grind, but that's the idea. That's the idea, that if you take complexity on, you got to be prepared for it. Make sure you don't drop the ball. There are always humans backing these things up. You can always turn the dial in either direction to take advantage of more agents at scale, or scale it back and take advantage of humans that are already in place. So that would be my advice and learned nuggets from helping customers deploy them. But despite talking about all the hard things, just quick staying there, I just want to leave on a couple of notes. Note number one, the promise of agents. The promise of agents is not about reaching parity with human and how they add value. What we are saying is agents should be doing even better. Think about the case where you're talking to your favorite customer service agent while calling for your internet. That's one of the most painful things that that people say it is, to talk to somebody on the customer service side with your favorite internet company, your ISP. But think about the scenario where it's your mom or your dad who only understands, or your uncle who only understands a particular language, only understands a particular tone, who has very little patience. They are not technically savvy. They don't know how to handle all of these things. But imagine an agent on the other side speaks your language, understands your tone, is very empathetic, never loses patience, has hours and hours of energy to keep up till your problem is solved. That's going above and beyond what humans can do today. So that's the kind of a promise you're talking about, that agents can be even better than what humans are doing today. Right? The last thought, natural interfaces. So watch out. We're going to have agentic technology enabling all sorts of natural, from natural language to text to speech to audio, even visual modes will be enabled, right? That's going to happen. The second thing is we are all getting trained what new kinds of interface or the interface that's shaping our usage behaviors. On the consumer side, we already see that if you go to this chat GPT like box, magic can happen. You can ask a bunch of questions, you can narrow things down. It can even then offer you that, can I do this for you? And it'll accomplish the task. So that's the interface habit that we're getting into. But where we are today is that we have an app for this and an app for that. Go here to do this, go here to do that. But that's going to change. We have to watch for the fact that more natural ways of interacting will happen, and the interface is going to change to what we are already seeing to come to that box where magic happens and things will get done. Thank you. I guess we can take questions and stuff later, right? So
if you would like to, we could do it now.
It's up to the audience, and I can stay here for a few minutes, but I would like to not overstay because we have another session after this.
That's okay.
Yes.
We've counted.
Take all the time.
Take all the time.
Robbie is like, yeah, go for it.
So anyone, it's open for questions. Anyone from the audience? I had a question.
One here, one there.
Thanks, Indrajit, for sharing your perspective on this. Thank you. Quick question. So regarding the human in the loop, right? Based on your perspective, what you are saying is, on top of implementing and deploying the agents, right? Along with that, we also need to increase the humans in the loop to take care of all the exceptional scenarios of the edge cases, right? To have that empathy. Do you think companies are thinking in that way, or cutting out the humans or the employees before they feel confident on the deployed agents?
I think what's happening is that people are staying on the periphery of the critical operations, and they are not able to jump into the critical operations side of agentification because they worry about these things, but they're not aware that they should be doing these steps to get there, right? I think the point I'm trying to make is that if something is super critical to you, you should not leave it up to say, okay, I got this agentic implementation right, and I'm going to go live and things will be just fine. So you got to prepare for backups. That usually means some human in the loop planning, right? It can be as simple as human gets called only when there's an exception. So that's the way you manage your process planning for the agents, and you have the instructions for it. Or it's possible that you might have to say, hey, the next set of transactions of this critical value only goes to the human queue. So there is literally a queue where humans do it end to end because you just don't trust enough yet that for those class of transactions, the agent is going to get it right. So it's an entire spectrum that you can plan for. Hey, Nagesh, how are you?
So one more thing to add there is, if you have a scoring system. For example, it's a customer service scenario or a tech support scenario, like what you seem to be implying. You need to have the same scoring systems, like the Turing test, that you will test. You will see how the satisfaction is, how is call control, how is them understanding what the problem is, how is empathic listening, how is their solutioning, right? And how is their follow through, right? All those you would score in a typical customer care or a tech support call. The same set of things you need to do with this also, and then see where the gap is so that you train the thing to get better.
Correct. I think the AB human agent test that we're talking about, right? If you really have two parallel paths through which you're running your current process, you can observe them on each of the steps and at an aggregate or at a granularity, and then you have the data right there, right? What is doing well? How should you take the learning from one to the other? So your ability to then glean the learning from one, either using any of these rigorous scoring system, and then applying the same back into the agent to tune it for the next round of deployments. That's what you want. So that's the idea behind human agent A/B testing, basically. You had a
The
question.
same reason that you talked about that kind of measuring the performance. You touched performance aspect
Correct.
a little bit.
Correct.
Okay, got it. So it's just purely to tune, not to compare humans versus machines.
It is
Purely to tune the language or whatever the agents, not to compare human versus agents.
In my opinion, if your goal is to reach X amount of efficiency and productivity, right? AI mimics us at the end of the day. So you have to take the best of your humans and make sure you can observe them and apply the learnings from that to the agents. Basically, that's the idea behind it. It's that simple. Basically.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions?
I don't really have a question. I just have a comment to support what you're sharing there about interacting with humans versus using the tool. I'm a speaker for HEI, and I was just in Vegas. We did a survey of all of the 3,000 people at that conference, and one of the questions was, do people feel confident in AI?
Mhm.
And 70% of people feel like they're not. And those are the people that are not using a combination of the tool plus interacting with humans, because that is needed to enable successful support of this tool.
True. Yeah, I think success comes from having a sense of control. And a sense of control will come once you have all the levers that you need to go back and forth and turn the dial in the direction you feel that's giving you success. And you know how to have success with humans doing your processes today. Without that factor being in the loop, it is very hard for our customers to feel the trust, the control, and that they are heading towards success.
I have a question on that. Speaking of control, do you have a suggested framework or management that you would suggest, especially when you're comparing agents to the potential that they're going to be offering, especially as you're scaling not just a handful of agents, but as they grow to hundreds and thousands? You speak to having the human in the loop, but what type of governance or framework do you suggest to make sure that when you're not actively monitoring these agents, what's the process in play? Because it's much easier as you're slowly integrating them into your spaces. But to your point earlier, there's concerns over the explosion of agents, as we all know that's going to be. Do you have any resources or even frameworks that you would suggest that we all should be keeping in mind as we start exploring more and more about agents?
Yeah, I think there is all sorts of oversight that you should be doing. One is the more proactive oversight, or the proactive readiness to receive escalations, respond to them, and you're actively watching what's going on. Should be all sorts of other reactive or post facto analysis or monitoring that's happening in terms of your success rates or of your outcomes that you're looking at, and seeing what's going on. So the more granularly you would define the process that the agents are using to instruct themselves and have mapping to what they are doing and getting it logged somewhere, that, okay, this agent is meant to do steps A, B, C, D, E, and such and sub steps in them. And they are actually there somewhere that you are auditing and logging them. That gives you so much more confidence to build all sorts of monitoring in terms of what their success rate is across the entire process, sub steps, actions, all that kind of stuff. So you exactly know what things are failing, what is happening, and you're starting to log. And you do the same thing for when the human is doing certain actions as well. So there is a real parallel and shadowing there that's happening. So then they are easy to compare in terms of effectiveness, in terms of failure rates, in terms of the secret sauce that the human might have that we need to distill and make agents be as good and in future even better.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Indrajit. If anyone has any more questions for Indrajit, just stay back for the networking and happy hour, and I think we can take questions from there. All right, let's move on to the next part of today. So we're going to now shift to the next phase of what happens when we don't just use AI and add it to our apps. What if we build them natively for AI from day one? And that's where it's my pleasure to introduce our next speaker for today, Ravi Krishnaswamy. Ravi is a visionary and product leader with a multi-decade experience driving AI native innovation at scale. Currently, he leads Accenture's AI-first platforms division, where he designed and built solutions grounded in continuous learning, modular architecture, and embedded intelligence. Before that, he helped bring AI and big data to market as a CTO for InMobi, SVP for Flipkart, and spent nearly 2 decades at Microsoft shaping their Cloud OS platform. Ravi spearheaded the industry AI MSR team as part of Azure Industry Charter. He owned various application platforms, including integration platform and developer platforms like .NET, which are all relevant backgrounds for this AI native application transformation. So today, Ravi will take us beyond the AI add-on era into what it means to build enterprise applications with AI at the core, from design principles and architecture to governance and adoption. We look forward to hearing from you, Ravi.
I will try. How are you guys? Thank you.
Just so that we can stay on camera.
Okay, thanks. How are you? Good. So if it is all right with you, I'll make it more interactive, right? So because one of the excuses I don't have slides. So Indrajit is making me look really unprepared and bad. So that's my excuse, right? But let me start with this. How many of you are excited with AI in every flow of software going forward? How many of you are anxious to have AI as part of every flow of software? Right? It's 50-50. And I'm nervous as well. But I'm at the fag end of my career, so good luck to you youngsters. Okay. Let me know how it goes. I always think like when it comes to such occasion, I always look back at history, then reflect on present to guide us to the future. So today, my entire session, I'm gonna follow that framework. And it's a very interactive, it's gonna be a two-way conversation, okay? And I can go down to whatever the depth that you want to go to. Now let's start with very simple definition of what is application. It's not a trick question. What is enterprise application, business application? When you think of it, what comes to mind?
It makes your life easier in the business processes.
Started it to perform a task.
Okay, great.
Set
Set of tasks.
Set of tasks. And like from application developer side, how would you think through? If you need to just explain to, a fresher or a high school kid going to, computer science or whatever, I think if you abstract out all of this, right? Every application, including consumer-oriented application, including Flipkart's e-commerce funnel that we were developing, ultimately it comes down to UI over workflow over data. Can we agree on that?
Yep.
Yeah. Every application comes down to that. Whether your enterprise application or your mobile application or your website, right? So now, the other exercise that I wanted, by the way, please participate. There is no right or wrong answer. I don't, we will just engage in this conversation and hopefully we will be better educated at the end of this half hour, okay? Now I want to understand, like, do you know how enterprise software came about? What is the origin? Again, I don't know the answer. We can ask ChatGPT, but I'm going to think through, right? Hey, I asked you to reflect on history. Reflect on history, where enterprise software could have started. Those with the laptop and mobile, don't ChatGPT, please. I see like somebody typing. No cheating. Huh? Internet. Okay.
It's about finding patterns and then building for that pattern.
Right, but where it originated, the evolution of software, where it started, right? Let's reflect on that.
1940s, 50s.
40s, 50s, and where it started.
Ability to store data is a problem.
What is the problem it started with?
Data.
Manual integrating
Commerce.
commerce.
Defense.
Commerce.
Defense.
Defense. Calculations. To me, when I think through, the software started when industrial revolution started. When industrial revolution started, manufacturing and factory concept started. Then suddenly, who knows, either the first origin of software came from resource movement, requirement, material requirement, MRP. Before ERP, MRP started, right? That is about material requirement planning. Because it got into a stage where industries were producing stuff, so you need to control the input, plan the input, right? And human cannot do it. You cannot. There was no spreadsheet, nothing. So literally, MRP was the first system that got formed. Then over a period of time, people started adding like bells and whistles to it, right? Hey, it can do finance operations, can do HR operations, and then ERP came, right? Around the same time, commerce, right? Like he was saying. Commerce also was getting complex, right? Then banking, BFSI is another place where lot of applications started coming up, right? Because you're putting money, tomorrow you want to go back and withdraw money, and you want to withdraw from multiple locations, it needs to be coordinated, right? So that again, why that is important? That is important because when you look back at it, that's what guided enterprises to adopt software. Software is a means to an end. It's actually a necessary evil. If people can do without software, they don't need software. Okay? All of us will be out of job, but that's different. So now the next journey that I want to go through, and I will relate it all hopefully, right? Where does coding got started? What is the origin of coding and evolution of coding? Sorry?
For easy time, you need to interact very fast.
Right. Okay. Like evolution of programming languages, coding, started with assembly, right? Assembly again came about when the processors came about. There was instruction set, so you can target it. You can start automating tasks and all of that to really fast track your thing. Why that is important? Went from assembly code. It roughly started around the same time, 40s, 50s, 60s, and then very quickly it went into functional programming. Evolved to object-oriented programming, managed execution, unmanaged execution to managed execution, the .NET paradigm that I was part of from day one. And then later on, it went into dynamic languages, God knows, not strongly typed languages like Pythons and whatnot. To now, any of you code these days? Oh, come on, don't cheat. You still code. Good job. I don't. And finally I started coding again because vibe coding, this thing became cool now, right? I can ask AI to do something, it codes something, and I can also be a programmer again, right? But that's the reality today. And this is an important axis I'll come back to, okay? Third axis from history, I want to rewind and look at. We looked at how application and software evolved, how coding evolved, coding paradigm, programming languages evolved. The other axis I want to explore now is how the different platforms and product, supporting this, how the platform side and framework side evolved, right? So if you really think about it, I went from, what I said is UI over workflow over data. Pretty much every one of that is supported by a platform evolution, right? For UI, every 5 years, there was a platform, right? In the last one I touched and felt was React Native. I'm pretty sure I'm very outdated now, right? So there is probably a zillion other things that you all are playing with that I have no idea. Similarly, if you look at workflow, where we come from, we were at Microsoft, we were starting from, I've developed various application platform, integration platforms, service bus, workflows, Power, all of that came to address a lot of the workflow needs, right? How do you simplify, etc. Even VBA was that, right? Microsoft Origin, when we go back, it was around automating those processes, etc., within the context of Office, right? Then the other thing that came about is plethora of data platforms, right? That's to support databases, data analytics, big data, small data, data lakes, data ocean, whatever it is, right? All of those came up to support the data part of the architecture that I was defining. And then, of course, we want to make everything fancy. There is a technical fellow sitting in every company. They will have to publish a paper. There is a 3-tier architecture, 5-tier architecture, 2-tier architecture, matching framework, tools, and everything we develop, right? Now I go back to, if AI is writing code, what happens to all this? If AI is writing code, what happens to different platforms around it? Does it care? Human was very opinionated because we were married to our 3-tier architecture. It was a religion that I need to bet on React Native. AI doesn't care, right? Now, with all of that, now you're starting any industry or starting a company, and we established that software as a means to an end, it's a necessary evil. So given all of this, in the AI era, what is important to us? If you are funding the dollar of the software, what is it that you would want from that dollar of the software?
What is the monetization?
Monetization, how it return on investment, right? ROI. So the reason that I'm asking this question is, let's take an example of ERP SAP. When it came about defining ERP process, BPM and all of that, how do you do order to cash? What the hell is order to cash? Who defined it? SAP did. Procure to pay. SAP did. Because when things were chaotic, we needed standardization of process and workflows. But when things started evolving, have you been part of SAP implementation? How many of you? Wow, thank God. Those of us who have been a part of SAP can relate to almost 2/3 of SAP implementation never completed. Okay? And why? Because, sorry?
Especially done by Accenture.
Especially done. Hey, don't get me in trouble, yeah? And I'm been with Accenture only for 2 years, so you can bash Accenture outside, but not over mic when somebody is recording, right? So I would say, what was once an order to a chaos became too much of an order and rigidity that it is coming in the way of that ROI. Can we agree on that? We all probably made good money developing custom software and custom solutions, etc. Of course, firms like Accenture actually made a living out of that. So to me, then enterprise software, I will now define it into 4 broad categories. One is the ERP, the resource planning, which is all the horizontal functional systems, right? Second is all the vertical system, like since I started with the manufacturing, the MES, right? Manufacturing execution system is a manufacturer-oriented vertical system. For oil and gas, there is a Schlumberger doing production, drilling simulation, reservoir simulation of workflows and whatnot. That's in the vertical context. And then there are 2 other categories of software, which is the plethora of data analytics solution. I'm generalizing, right? And then the 4th category is custom software, right? You just go and put a solution together and get it all working. Broadly speaking, any need of any application in an enterprise comes down to just this. Okay? Now, if AI is in the middle, if I'm defining the best, I'm pushing for the best return on investment for my dollar, and we all are imagining an AI native world, right? Why do we care about any of this definition, any of this? Why do we care about when intelligence is sitting in critical path of transaction, not a afterthought of analytics or afterthought of nightly batch processing kind of near real time batch processing kind of analytics, afterthought of machine learning data science in the past world, right? 5 years ago versus now. Now machine is sitting and deciding everything. And I was telling some of them, like Satya made this even publicly, he said that, right? Foundational models are going to get only smarter and smarter. Don't bet against a foundational model. But at the same time, there are going to be domain SLM, right? DSLM, which again, like domain specific smaller models, which are going to be foundational for that domain. So if we want to think AI native, that's where we should start. You should really understand a foundational model would work. Do you need to put together your own DSLM? Do you have enough data? Is there a vendor? If you are a vendor, go build those systems, because that's what will be relevant for you in the future. If you are a solution integrator, go consume such things. That's what will make you relevant for your client. So that's step 1. So I'm going in the reverse order now, right? I'm starting with the intelligence, because intelligence is in the middle. So the old architecture, 3-tier, 5-tier, doesn't matter, right? The old thing of UI over workflow, farm over data, workflow over data doesn't matter. So you start with intelligence. Then the next thing intelligence needs is you need to feed it the data. And you don't want to go back to old style data lake, worrying about individual connectors of different things, etc. Guess what's going to happen, right? And I think Indra just touched on it, and someone was asking the question of what in the agentic proliferated world, what happens? Well, now the industry is very smart. Like I defined the SOAP protocol back in the 99, 2000. We thought we did something brilliant, and REST API and all of this interchange protocol came. Now model MCP is MCP A to A, and all of this is the latest bus, right? But what is finally happening in MCP, my agent and your agent are talking, but we are not agreeing on any predefined contract. You don't have an API contract, you don't have a data contract. My agent is walking and saying, hey, can you respond to this? In semantic natural language, could be text, whatever, talk. Why that is important is that your agent is context aware, schema aware, semantic aware. So that certainly gives me, I don't need to run like old style data integration, ETL, any of that. Right? So in that world, what is my architecture? My architecture is, sorry?
Just 2 agents talking.
2 agents talking, and I just need to worry about standardizing that and managing that. Then what happens to all of us? What happens to all of us?
Debugging the issues it creates.
Debugging the mess it creates. Debugging the mess it creates. And Indrajit touched on a lot of the governance, agent governance and all of that, right? There is, of course, what I'm painting, I don't want to be anxious. I don't want to be overly enthusiastic. We need to be factual. This change is going to take like decades to happen, right? It's not going to be overnight. But my topic is AI native. So you all need to reflect and really apply for your own needs, right? So in this world, if I now go into model exchange that are taking care of my semantic aware data exchange, then I don't need to worry about data integration. I don't worry about like data architecture and any of that. Loosely speaking, my ESB, the enterprise service bus, become MCP server interchange bus. Do you agree? So I very much see this happening, right? Those of us that come from having developed these platforms, etc. If I were to quit my job and do it, this is probably what I would go and innovate around. Then you start really. Then the important thing is then there is no static workflow, right? So you can infinitely stitch any solution and process together. You need to invest around the framework and governance around that. So you don't need to start with a static anything. Then the layer above, you don't need to have any static form or UI anymore. World might be all NLP driven, even otherwise. Even if I'm interacting with the form, for the same task, if me and Indrajit are doing the exact same role, he can generate his own modality, I can generate my own modality. It will be infinitely customizable in that sense, right? Because that's what machine would allow. And that doesn't mean that you're only talking to a chatbot, chat thing, or only speaking to it. I can ask it to generate the 5 buttons that I care about over whatever the data and function that I care about. It should generate automatically. This is the world that we are walking into, right? So I am super excited. That's where I will, as a technologist, as a platform product guy, this is unprecedented amount of innovation that is getting unleashed, right? So thanks for humoring me, and hopefully it was somewhat reflective and useful. Happy to take questions.
So do we have any questions here? We have Manju there.
Yeah, since you talked about industrialization, then are we entering into an era where industries which own the compute storage like Microsoft, say Google, these are going to be the big industries, and all the other companies which made money out of selling information, nothing else, are going to have to reinvent themselves, or the power, like I can sit today and build a application, ERP application in days. I don't need Salesforce, I don't need any other thing. So are these industries the one critical thing that they have to reinvent, or is it good for people? I mean, smaller people, smaller companies. What is your take?
Right. I think there is multiple way to parse that, right? So I think industry definition, it could be non-technology, non-software industry, which has a need for the software. And there is a software tech industry, right? Like, across the layers that I talked about, there are probably 1,000 vendors that are making billion each, right? That collectively, the NASDAQ market cap is, I don't know how many trillion. So the people are making real money, real market cap today. And so your question is, what happens to a lot of the middle category? Again, it will take a while. Those with the user base like Microsoft or Salesforce is gonna do everything to really provide a moat around that. The old way of doing with agentic at the top, because it's not in their interest to go make it AI native from the ground up, and it'll take a while, right? And the enterprises are not going to be clean field; they're going to be brown field. That's why all our jobs are safe, right? So at least mine, right? So so my point is, I think I would look at it that way. So I would look at it as, it's not that only big techs and hyperscalers where the cloud factories and AI factories are the only one that will survive. I think it's like understanding. I painted one potential. I didn't give any blueprint. I painted one potential way in which that looking at history and present, what it could be. And it needs to be the buyer, what you would buy the value around. And if you start thinking like that for your area, you can start figuring out what is the Horizon 1, like using the McKinsey framework. Horizon 1, what you should do. Horizon 2, what you should do. 3, what you should do. And eventually, Horizon 3 will look more or less like what we discussed. right? So depending on where bleeding edge or lagging edge you are, you can decide, right, for your industry, for your application, for your needs, how you want to evolve.
Thank you so much. Anyone else?
I have a question.
Yes,
So,
please.
do you really think that field is like all gone? Because I come from a traditional data side of the world, and I see LLMs struggle today when it's just pi tables, like garbage in, garbage out. So if you're thinking that you can just give unstructured data and have an LLM do wonders on top of it, I don't think it's possible. So
Yeah. So today, don't mistake me. That's why I said this might take a decade to play out. So, but if you think AI native, why do I need ETL? If I'm starting afresh everywhere, light a fire, put gasoline over all enterprise software, and if you can start over, why would I start with all this mess? Because of the different software island that I talked about, right? Horizontal ERP, vertical software, data lake, data analytics, all of this is different. Is the reason why all of this plethora of solution come to ETL. Who define ETL? Again, a workflow defined by somebody in the data export context or import context, right? Exchange context. So the way I look at it is that this is not going to happen overnight, but like the Gen Z is coming, like my kids, they go to Instagram to buy everything. And I'm like, why would you buy anything from Insta? But that's where they buy. Likewise, the new enterprises that are born in this native world, 10 years from now, 5 years from now, why would they start with SAP? Why would they start with wanting to create a mess that then they need to solve with a Snowflake and other things? They are not going to do that.
So if you want to take the past and then project into the future, definitely there was bespoke software development first before standardization came.
Absolutely.
Right? And so you will have a lot of bespoke things and you'll be doing things in incompatible ways. And then people say, okay, the language I'm speaking to him, he speaks Bengali, I speak Telugu, it's not going to quite translate, right? Maybe it will, right? It won't quite translate. So there will be standardization, which will be the need of the day, but not the kind that we have 3 tiers, right? You always need directory services. You have to discover which bot is going to tell me, what it's going to end. So the capabilities need to be advertised. Some way should be there for advertising, something should be for discovery, just like you did in the networking stack and in the distributed system stack, right, of the past. So then how do you kind of parse the task into various stages and automatically, dynamically create pipelines? Then how do you audit those pipelines and how you make it explainable? Because later you have to say, why did you sell this, peanut bar $2 to him and $1 to this guy, right? You need to be able to explain why that is. So there is a whole lot of things that have to happen before the.
Right? 100%. And I think those are all the system. If you're building solutions framework or platform products, those are all the kind of governance and guidance products that you need to go build, because that's where the mission will struggle. Explicability is one angle. When I was at InMobi, I put the dynamic flow, pricing algorithm, floor pricing, like whatever. My ad exchange, we were participating in 80 billion auction, and rather than doing it manual ETL, etc., we rolled out a deep learning model and this thing. When I made $1 million more a day in ad exchange, my CFO was happy. If we lose 100K, you will come and knock the door. What happened today? Right? So like high frequency trading is the same way. Why HFTs, they don't use deep learning or machine learning. They have to use only heuristic based one. And this might have changed now, right? Everything has changed. Why? Because that predictability, repeatability, explicability, all of that is super important, right? So none of that is going to change. You're absolutely right. I think we need to have predictability, but I don't think that in a AI native world, I think 90% of what we do today will be solved. And of course, it will create further problem. And so I think the idea would be that we move up the value chain, create like more flexible, more fluid, whatever, so that liberates us to go grow. So today, the other way to look at it is that I'm probably consuming more time, but the other way to look at it is that if I'm starting an enterprise, I ask in the question, right? If I'm spending $100, if I'm spending $10 on software, which is a means to an end, if the $10 can go down to $8 or $7 or $5 or $4, that much capital gets released to go grow the business. That's what will happen, right? And there will be more demand for writing more things to grow the business. So today's software and today's way of working might change, but it will unleash more growth. And if you listen again, I am jury is out for myself thinking this. I'm my more I think like I kind of core dump and then shut down. I don't want to think. But the Bill Gates of the world believe that this is gonna put man in the moon and all that. So power to that. Anyway, I don't want to take any more time. You have a question?
One last question
Yes,
on
please.
the AI native stuff. So you said that we have to go with the domain specific large language models or domain specific models that needs like the model to be tuned.
Correct.
It has to be provided with the context.
Correct.
And there are only two different ways or three different ways today. One is like the RAG where you provided the context.
Right.
2 is fine tuning. 3 is like giving it the domain training, which
Correct.
is very, very expensive.
Correct.
Which needs data and which needs like a lot of GPU power.
Correct.
So how do we start about AI native?
I think what will happen is you will fast forward 5 years. Every there will be a lot of DSLM vendors who have trained and taken that. Just like when the enterprise out, like I went to go back to Schlumberger. Schlumberger is probably sitting on wealth and breadth and depth of reservoir simulation data. This is basically a petrophysicist and geophysicist work on the model stuff, right? For the machine, why does it care? It's a multi-dimensional data. If I train on it, then after that, I give it to Chevron, I give it to Exxon. Nobody needs to worry about that part. So that domain has been trained already. Would it happen today? Would it happen 5 years, 10 years? I don't know. But as an evolution of platform, this is the kind of platform that will come up. This is the kind of independent software vendor solution will come up, right? DSLM is one area, but I think the integration, governance, responsible AI, all of this will again be this. And there'll be a plethora of standardized solution eventually will come on top as well. I do believe that. How are we doing on time?
Last question. So we're running late now, so we can continue with the rest of the questions.
Guys, if you give me mic, I'll keep talking, okay? You need to cut it off.
Well, I also probably have the same problem. Give me a mic, I'll keep talking. I'll be started off with history, right? The computer's history and all. Sort of in today's world, for engineers to be using AI in their day-to-day life. So going forward in interviews, what is the core skill set that what is a core skill set you will on?
I would test for hacker, growth hacking. Like you need to be a hacker, you need to be quick on feet, look for multiple things, putting things together. Like again, like all you need to do is to observe today's high schoolers. They can operate 5 things at a time. It just like I get like dyslexia and then I stop like if I do more than one. But they are able to do that, and those are the guys that are going to interview the future things, right? Future generation. So it will all be around how smart, how quick, how much you are able to growth hack in a situation, right? I truly think that will be the common denominator. Like for example, Microsoft, we always used to hire generalists. We will say that, go test for systems aptitude and this and that, algorithm development, this and that. I don't really care. Like you could be a 20-year industry veteran. You go into a Microsoft loop or you go into a Google loop, you will bomb it because their philosophy is whatever that is, right? For their culture. I do think that one core philosophy going forward would be how quick you are on your feet, how versatile you are, how growth hacking, lack of a better way of putting it, right? At least that's how I would interview going forward.
Maybe on the prompt engineering all the way. just prompt engineering and you're there.
Yeah, thank you. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ravi. That was really some powerful insights there. Okay. Sorry. So we're gonna go moving to the next one. Okay. So we're going to now move on to the next path, and I'm going to take some time to introduce my panelists today. And my team is going to be
busy putting the chairs behind, so don't get distracted on that one. Okay, you guys can carry on. Yeah. Thank you so much. It's my honor to invite our distinguished panelists today. We have four of them whom I'm going to be bombarding with questions today, and on behalf of all of you guys. So don't worry, I'll take care that they answer some of the questions that we're looking for. So we start with Pramod Raghavendran today. Pramod is a data and privacy leader with a track record to operationalizing, maturing, and scaling global data and privacy programs through technology solutions. He's an engineer at heart and takes technology first approach to problem solving. After honing his skills at a variety of companies across Australia and the US, including Amazon, Google, Coinbase, he currently serves as Group Director, Customer Data and Identity at Walmart. Welcome, Pramod.
Thank you.
Right. The next one we have here is Eden Cohen. Eden brings AI innovations and frontier capabilities into Google's Platforms and Devices Group, bridging the worlds of product management and AI research. He's an expert on large language models with 2 decades of experience in enterprise and consumer technology domains. Before joining Google, Eden led Microsoft infrastructure products for confidential computing, enabling Fortune 500 customers to bring critical business workloads to the cloud. Eden holds a computer science and MBA degrees from the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. Let's extend a warm welcome. Next, we'll have on stage Bhavnesh Rangarajan. Bhavnesh is a seasoned AI product leader with 19 plus years of experience driving innovation in enterprise AI, machine learning, and data security solutions. As a principal PM manager at Microsoft, he spearheads cutting-edge AI initiatives, including semantic indexing and large language model reasoning for Copilot, enabling intelligent data discovery and compliance at scale. That's an interesting topic for me. I'll talk to you about it later. Bhavnesh's passion includes leveraging AI to solve complex business challenges and deliver transformative digital experiences for millions of users worldwide. Welcome, Bhavnesh. And finally, we have, it's a pleasure to introduce Prakash Nagarajan. Prakash Nagarajan is the CVP at Quadrant Technologies, and he focuses on global growth and strategy. With over 20 years of leadership at world-class firms such as HP, Microsoft, and Accenture, Prakash has a proven track record of driving product innovation and scaling global businesses. In his current role here at Quadrant, he leads growth strategy while channeling his entrepreneurial spirit. That's as he's the founder of an AI-powered global wealth management startup. With this unique blend of experience as both a corporate leader and an AI innovator, Prakash brings invaluable insights on delivering intelligent automation at scale. Please welcome. So we are going to explore 10 key questions here. Our questions today are going to range from data privacy frameworks and ROI measurement to extensibility, and the future of generative AI in enterprise settings. So our key topics for the panel discussion today is going to be converging AI, data, and automation, and looking at the future of business applications. All set? I'm not going to be sitting down here, so we'll just stand in questions. Do we have them? And we have a couple of them, so we can move around. So my very first question, it's basically a foundation question that I have. Like, when does Microsoft, Google, and Salesforce are embedding AI capabilities, generative AI capabilities directly into their core CRM and ERP platforms right now? These are no longer isolated features. So we're talking about conversational co-pilots, predictive analytics, embedded agents, and more, shaping how work is done across functions. So here's the question to kick us off.
What new capabilities should enterprises expect from these embedded AI features? And how will these reshape enterprise IT strategy? So we are looking at both from a platform and an architectural standpoint. I'm going to leave this question open to you all. Who would like to start?
I'm happy to start. First of all, thanks for having me here, and I'm super excited. Thanks for turning up as well. Anything to add? Okay, thank you. So I think as AI has had a bit of a important moment about 2 years ago when ChatGPT came on, right? The machine learning, data science has always been there, and ChatGPT just created a hockey stick in terms of what AI means to all of us. And today there's so much innovation happening that AI is being tried to be introduced in a lot of different areas. We're still very early on. A lot of those bets will fall through, right? It's like innovation. You put 10 things on a wall, 8 are going to fall off, 2 are going to kick off, and then you're going to start investing in there. So we're still in those early stages. While that breadth is being explored by the entire ecosystem, one area that stands out for me, which is very exciting, is analytics. Now, when you think about running a business, having data, analysis, insights to run your business, to make decisions on a day-to-day basis is supremely powerful. I think there's a ton of activity happening in that space in terms of how can analysis, data, insights become available at your fingertips. We've been used to data through tables, through visualizations, etc. We've had machine learning help us with predictions in terms of how can we use the history to go forward. We've touched a lot on that topic today, thanks to Ravi. But there's a step further that we could take it, which is how can you get prescriptive about analytics? It's not just about predicting, it's about then prescribing. How do you take this information and translate that into a plan? Right? That's an area that I think is super exciting for me. There's a bunch of activity happening there, both at the B2B space and the B2C space. I'll be watching out closely there. I'll leave it at that.
I can go next. First of all, thanks for having me over here, and thanks to Pramod for kind of introducing to you folks. So I'm really excited to be here, let me tell you that. And I know Ravi and Indrajit, right? I thought they're going to have a specific conversation, but then they opened up a grocery shop, okay? And then they, in fact, took all the vegetables from their ingredients from their cooked a meal and served it to all of you. Now, we want to know if you're still hungry for anything and how we are going to serve it. It's going to be very interesting what they're thinking through this. So Ravi asked a very interesting question, but I didn't see it because I was sitting over here. So how many of you are really happy about AI over here? Just put your hand up. Super happy about AI? Okay. How many of you are really very, very scared? You don't know like how things are going to go. Looks like no one is scared. Are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure?
They're all scared to lift their
They're
hands.
not scared to lift their hands. Okay, yes, thank you so much. I'll tell you where we are.
It's a combination of being excited and being scared for me.
Yeah.
At least I would say that.
I think the scare factor is basically suppressing the excitement, let's put it that way. So where we are on our journey right now is basically at the cusp of fear and desire, essentially. That's where AI is. We do not know where this is going to go. We all hope it's going to go somewhere. Right now, early in the morning, you think that, wow, this is amazing. By midday, you feel like, I'm really scared. I don't know where this is going to take me. That's where you are. Now, with that said, I want to leave you with 3 things that I feel where AI is going to go, right? The first one I want to introduce is hyper automation of business process. That's something that's going to really take off. Gartner basically predicts that 80% of all the business processes over the next 2 years is going to be completely AI-driven, automated, right? So it's very important for us to understand that's something which is going to happen. People are going to try it. How well it's going to work or fail is for us to watch, right? The second one is AI can be great. It could be everywhere. But if you cannot scale on personalization, AI is going to fail. So it's very important. Companies are going to realize that. And whatever is going to be built is going to be super personalized. What I mean to say is you could have an agent of your own, a Bhavnesh agent, a Pramod agent, or a Eden agent, and that's how life is going to go. An agent for everyone, not an agent to rule them all. It's your own agent ruling over you. So let's be ready for that, right? And basically, since I mentioned Gartner, I think McKinsey will not be happy if I don't mention them on the data. So 40% of the companies are going to see a very good revenue uptick, and they're using all these strategies on trying to basically look into self-service agents. The last but not the least, I think Pramod had the first mover advantage over here, which is on predictive analytics, AI-driven predictive analytics. This is going to really play a huge game. What I mean to say is, see, data is dime a dozen these days. Like everyone has data, right? So you cannot really go and say, oh, I hold data and I'm the king of data. There are a few companies who do that, but then essentially you could build a model. You can basically abstract it through APIs, and then you are actually rolling over that data. And that goes back to a lot of questions you're going to ask today. So it's very important that we watch it for that. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. So maybe I'll provide the Google angle, because I know a lot of you are more familiar with Redmond than with Mountain View. And I spent enough time in Redmond to understand that there is a big difference, in fact. But we started, as you were saying, Pramod, with the ChatGPT kind of revolution, and all of a sudden, every little business app started integrating a text box for prompts. But I don't think it was extremely impressive, right? We still kind of went to our chatbot of choice, and that was our preferred text box. So clearly that's not working. And I think, and a lot has happened since, but you still see many apps promising to deliver AI by essentially dropping a pretty simplistic LLM, maybe with a fancy system prompt, but it's fancy system instructions, but it doesn't provide a ton of value. I think the next phase that we should expect to see is a much more holistic and integrated suite of business applications. At Google, we already do some of that with workspace flows, for example, that sort of cuts across all your productivity apps using agentic AI. So instead of like 20 different copilots, maybe one copilot that you can trigger in different places, but it sort of knows your context across all these business applications. That is the next thing I would expect to see. And it's a lot of work to get this right. There's some technical limitations, like the context window is a little limited. Do we do RAG? Do we shove everything the model should potentially have access to into one big prompt? So behind the scenes, these are not simple problems, but there are solutions to them. And then the next phase, I think, will harness the great ability of these models to code and essentially build their own tools to address problems in a very ambiguous environment under very fast-changing circumstances. And that will open yet another tier, I think, of productivity gains.
Thank you, Eden. And Prakash?
Yeah, hello. So I'm really excited to be here. The reason is you see a lot happening around AI in the world, and a lot of like anxiety, and people want to know what's happening to me and stuff like that. And companies like Quadrant are giving a platform to exchange thoughts, and I would prefer, you will see a lot of these events happening, but I would say this is the time more of this should happen. So people come together and learn from each other, learn from experts, collaborate, and they feel comfort that, hey, okay, I have an understanding of where this is heading and whatnot. So this is one such platform. So, it's great to be here. So my view of how AI is getting embedded into the business applications. So I would say all major software providers, Microsoft, Salesforce, and SAP, they all are deeply embedding AI into the product. But if you reflect back a bit, there are three areas that everyone had challenges in using business applications. One is access to information. Like as a sales, a service, anyone, you sit in the front of a system and then say, I want this information. Yes, your business applications or CRM service or sales provides it. But you need, again, additional data. You go to the ops person and then say, ask for the data. And then you need some more deeper information, then ops will go to some technical person and ask for the information. Right? So that's how it used to operate. But today you look at you have a conversational co-pilot embedded into the business applications. So like last few weeks, you will realize HubSpot integrated with OpenAI, and I will see more of that happening. So what it means is access to information for everyone who is using a business application. Now you are less dependent. You just ask what you need, you just have it right next second. Any sort of information, whether it is complex or simple, right? So access to information is now democratized and available to everyone. That's one. Second, predictive analytics, right? So for decades, in the business applications and data, we used to predict what would happen. As simple as in CRM, next best action. There used to be lot of thoughts and process behind it. Hey, how do I make this thing perfect? And 20 years ago, it was a complex problem. 10 years ago, it was slightly easy. But today, right, if the model can determine the next action and it can personalize and it can provide it. So that's the predictive analytics that is being again embedded, and it's making it easier for everyone to understand where we should go in this direction or that direction and whatnot, right? The third is the workflows itself, right? So you have always defined in the business application very deterministic workflows where it would work in only certain way. And if it slightly changes, it fails. So now you have to make the workflow so complex, or you will see a lot of edge cases it fails. You have to go and code and configure the workflow again. But today you build agents, right, which can have reasoning and thinking ability, and it can cover all those cases, and then it can still do the tasks for you, and it'll process it'll orchestrate the whole processes in real time, and that wasn't possible before. So just to summarize, how this is getting embedded, one is conversational and access to information, predictive analytics, and workflows getting changed to agents, and making the orchestration real time. All right, so those are the three in my view.
Awesome. Well, that gives a good platform to the start of today's discussion, I guess. So let me take now the next step to probably grill each one of you on one point. Would that be interesting? And Bhavnesh is already looking at me like, okay, what's she up to now? So let me start with Pramod. Pramod, let's look at data. And I think that's one of your strong points here, specifically customer identity. And we're looking at personalization. So how can customer identity and data be used to fuel AI-driven personalization and insights? That's my question. What are the best practices for managing that data responsibly while enabling advanced analytics? I know you spoke about predictive analytics and more like prescribed analytics going forward. So like to hear more.
Yeah. Personalization is very close to my heart, right? As a leader in the customer data and identity space, personalization is among the fundamental things that we actually empower enterprises with. Let me break the problem down of personalization. When you talk about personalization, you first need to understand the identity of the customer or the user. Identity itself today is increasingly becoming less and less deterministic. There are ways that you interact with systems where you don't tell them who you are. You're just telling them what you want. So recognizing identity of or the persona of the person that's interacting with you itself is a science problem, right? That's the first thing. The second thing, once you've identified a customer, is capturing intelligence about that customer. It's about their propensities to certain outcomes. It is causality of how certain nudges can result in certain outcomes. It's just knowing attributes about them. If you take a retail context, what do I like to shop for? What is my demographic? What is the makeup of my household? What do I have a propensity to buy? I just bought some camping gear. What's the next thing I would like to buy because of that, right? So intelligence. Gathering intelligence about your customers and your users is a second problem that you can throw science at. Once you've done that, there's so much data, there's so much intelligence, you need arbitration. I have an opportunity to personalize something for you. I have so much knowledge. How do I pick the best piece of that for the best time, which is now, to go and personalize an experience for the customer? So that again is a huge science problem. Once you've done that, then it is how do you present the content? the content itself can be personalized to each individual, right? So there again, there's a science aspect where you can throw AI to it to say, let's customize that content. After you've gone through all of those steps, the next thing is you have a feedback loop. Your customer has now had an opportunity to have something personalized and they're interacting with it. What you learn from it is what's reinforcing your next cycle where you personalize for your other customers. Okay, sorry, I think I just pressed the button off there. So if you look at each of those individual things, identity, customer intelligence, arbitration. I think this is slide. Yeah, I'll just repeat that, right? You start with identity, then you build intelligence, and then you arbiter what is the right next best action for that particular instance, and then you curate the content, and then you have the feedback loop to reinforce your learning. Now think of each of these as individual problems that you can throw to AI, and then take that a level up and elevate it to say you have another Uber AI that orchestrates across all of these things, right? That is essentially the power that we are on the cusp of. There's a lot of investments happening in each of those individual spaces. It has been there for a long time that personalization happens. We've known it through the lens of machine learning and scoring, but today we're going into that next level, which is generative. So that extra step is creating a lot of opportunities in each of those problem spaces. And as you string things together, the outputs are just unimaginable. In fact, we will be able to achieve things that we don't even imagine today in the coming quarters. And I use quarters very intentionally, not years or decades, right? That's the rate at which you can use data to achieve personalized outcomes. And I think the second part of your question was, how do you think about governance of that data, the analytical side of that data, right? I think ultimately, when it comes to customer data, governing that data is super important. Privacy is no longer just a thing that happens on the side. It is front and center. It's a conversation, and investing in privacy and governance is about protecting your business rather than just being a compliance consideration. So I think focusing on that is going to be a very key factor. And I think the last thing you touched on there was advanced analytics, right? Each of these points that I spoke about, identity, intelligence, etc., instrumenting each of that to be able to measure outcomes and create that to have that feedback loop is going to be super critical as you continue to tweak and start to deliver personalized experiences across the board.
Anyone else to share with Eden? At a product level, like if you're looking at customer data, I would like to know your viewpoints. Like, what are you looking at when it comes at the product level?
So customer data for product level, I think we have to remember that data governance and AI governance are essentially converging now. You can't just think about being a responsible AI player, an ethical AI player, if you don't think about the data implications. I think you raise a lot of super important points, but AI just makes things more complicated. The attack surface becomes larger. There are more points from which PII can leak than ever before. And we have this dilemma because on one hand, we know that these models, when you ground them in context, they perform a lot better and they hallucinate less. On the other hand, well, what context are you going to ground them in? Are you going to do it in training, in fine-tuning, and so on? So this raises a lot of really pivotal questions. There are no simple answers, but I think there are better approaches than others. One approach is that when you roll out or even think about how to integrate AI into a critical business workflow, you have to have the privacy team there or somebody representing them. Just like you need compliance and just like you need responsible AI, you have to consider all these aspects and find the right balance. And I think you won't get to the right balance no matter how much you try at your very first attempt. And that's where the iterative approach becomes really essential. It's a non-deterministic system, sometimes it does well with less than you think, and sometimes it does poorly with more context than you think. And the only way to understand that is through some trial and error.
I want to add something there. So very interesting. The propensity of data exposure has gone up a lot with AI coming in. So it's most important that we give a lot of thought towards keep what you need and get rid of what you don't as soon as possible. That's anonymization, everything plays into it. So data minimization is going to be one of the key aspects a lot of companies or a lot of players need to really pay attention towards. While we say that, when we think about trying to build all these agents, yeah, there is a customer problem that we are trying to solve. But more importantly, there needs to be principles on what is the boundary that you draw for an agent, saying, I want the agent to be able to do X, Y, Z. I don't want the agent to do all these 3 other things, and then trying to pay attention towards that will play a big role, because that's where the trust and the safety aspect is going to come in. When you fail to do that, once a trust is lost, I think people are going to move on, right? So you could say that, wow, look at this amazing feature that we have built, but then once a trust is lost, I don't think so. It's going to be very easy to gain that back.
That's a very essential point. Thanks for bringing it up. Trust and safety. And also, we should teach every AI agent that what not to answer. So if any unethical question comes, AI should say, sorry, I don't know, something like that. Or go and ask something else, or contact your so-and-so person.
So one way to think about it, people are still thinking agents as tools, right? And agents as software. See, that is a problem, right? Because then you don't think about security and roles and many other things, and you think software is accessing data or something. But it's a mindset shift where think of agents as another user in your company, right? A team member. So if you have a user or team member, what kind of role-based access you will give to that role, right? So if you have like 10 agents, each has a different role, each will have role-based access to the data and what it can do and what it cannot do. So that's a completely different mindset shift than just thinking, hey, this is agent, it'll have access to these tables and databases, or it can do certain things, right? So that is something people are missing when thinking of enterprise applications, and we need to rethink how you manage agents and data and governance.
That's amazing. So Bhavnesh, I'm going to take it to you next. So would you like to share your perspective on this one? As AI and automation evolve rapidly, how should companies design their applications to stay flexible? So what we're looking at is how can custom workflows and integrations be preserved when we have vendor platforms who are pushing in frequent AI-driven updates?
Yeah, great question. Thank you. It's a tough act to follow after Indrajit and Ravi, wherein they basically took the systems apart and telling you what you need to build and how you need to build it. But let me give it a shot. So think about your business is on a dance floor, right? And AI basically keeps switching the music from hip hop to reggae to pop, but you can only tango. That's a problem, right? Because not many people are going to see a tango when a pop is playing. So it's going to be totally disjointed, right? So it's essential that you need to have some principles in play when you're designing your system. So I'll try to summarize it on how I think about this. I think everyone would have heard about Lego, right? How many of you know Lego? Everyone knows Lego, right? Think about your value proposition that you're trying to build as a Lego component. Don't try to put super glue around it and try to build your apps wherein you put 10 things together and then you cannot just bring it apart unless you break things apart, right? So think about your value component. They stay alone. They are, I would say, mutually exclusive and collectively exhaustive, right? So that's very important for you to build your systems that way. So this also goes towards chatbots. So when you're thinking about building a chatbot and how you ground data on a chatbot, tomorrow you could think about it saying that, okay, I want to use a brand new chatbot because there is a new SLM or a DSLM which has come in and I want to ground based on that. So you could do that. The second thing over there is think about your data in the company as you're serving a set of buffet rather than you're trying to cook a meal, because AIs can cook that meal. You don't need to be doing that. So try to organize your data in the right fashion with all the actors that you were talking about. It's very important. so that you know that when an AI model is accessing the data, you exactly know what are the policies around it so that they don't get access beyond what they should. Last but not the least, allow your sales managers and operational executives in your team to go and play with the AI systems, right? So it's not that only the IT team should be building all these things. When you think about companies, I think everyone should have exposure towards AI models. So let them experiment things. Don't let them be at the gate of your IT team trying to build something. So we are in low code, no code mode right now. So I think everyone should understand exactly where we're going to take the business. And that gives them a lot of empathy towards what's happening in the market.
So Prakash, I'm going to take it to you than this one now. Just taking back to what Bhavani said, what implementation risk should teams anticipate? And can you share any strategies or tools that can help us mitigate disruptions caused by these frequent AI-driven updates?
I think Indrajit covered a lot of those points very well in terms of how structuring it, governance, and things that you need to manage. But I'll still again rephrase it again. With the pace of transformation going on, right, the new models coming in, new tech and frameworks and whatnot. So if you design it in the same way, you will suddenly see your workflows getting disrupted or your integrations getting broken, and suddenly you will even see security loopholes and whatnot. So what is important is making it modular, and your architecture should be in a plug and play model, and having a strong governance and versioning in place so you can always roll back. And one of the points I also touched upon is how do you secure and give the roles and whatnot. So these aspects are important, especially when things are happening so fast and you don't take care of these things and you cannot adapt faster. You should be able to switch models, you should be able to switch frameworks, you should be able to switch providers. And that's one of the reasons, in Quadrant, I've seen this tool called QMigrator, which allows you to migrate databases between AWS to GCP to Azure, or any database to any database, but all with AI-led. So that's the level of extensibility that you need to have when designing AI-led systems. So that way, you can switch, it can be modular, and you have the versions, you can roll back, and you can build a whole governance around it.
Thank you so much, Prakash. So Pramod, back to you on this one. What kind of return of investments are business seeing from AI-powered automation in sales, service, or back office processes? What key metrics should enterprise leaders track? For example, time saved, increased sales, or we're looking at cost reduction? Can we draw on recent IDC or industry benchmarks on these ones?
Yeah, I think return of investment is something everybody thinks about at the get-go, right? I'll steer away from industry benchmarks because your favorite LLM will give you that out of the box. But perhaps I'll break it down in terms of how we should be thinking about ROI and what some of the pitfalls are to ROI, right? Today, if you really think about artificial intelligence, the cost structures of using artificial intelligence are still very volatile. You look at the top LLMs, they're all burning cash. And their revenue models are constantly evolving. So there hasn't been stability in terms of the cost with AI itself. It's grossly subsidized today to start having adoption. So there's going to be some seismic shifts in terms of what your cost is when you start thinking about ROI. So the first thing to do is think about ROI not just in the short term, but in the long term. Right? That's perhaps one thing I would encourage. The second, I think we've touched on this multiple times. AI suffers from one problem: accuracy. It's not 100% accurate. But unfortunately, when AI solutions are deployed, people tend to deploy it to 100% of the scenarios. There's a classic use case that happened recently, Klarna, the fintech company. They pivoted to chatbots for their entire customer service, only to realize that it did the 80% of the straight-through processing cases really well, but the rest of it struggled, right? So as you think about ROI, the 80% of good benefits that you got is actually being canceled out by the 20% of churn and the loss of trust that you've created. So factor that into your ROI computations, right? And finally, I think, how should you think about ROI? Cost is a very simple thing. I think all of us know the dollar sign works really well in terms of measuring ROI. Your CFOs will love you by thinking about it. But there are some other metrics that you can think about as well. I think the first that comes to my mind is your time to market. As you introduce AI, is that improving the time to market for you to innovate and take products to market? I think it's a significant impact that AI is going to give us, your ability to take something to market. The second thing is the total cost of ownership. Often what we look to think about is the cost of getting out the gate and launching something, not the total cost of ownership over a period of time, right? And when you think about AI solutions as well, just think about that total cost of ownership, factor in some of the future, and that's a good way of measuring your ROI as well. So we talked about cost, we talked about time to market, talked about total cost of ownership. And there's one more thing, I think, which is the opportunity cost. AI brings a lot of efficiency with it, but how you deploy the benefits of that efficiency is the opportunity cost or the opportunity benefit that you get, right? So if you were able to do something with 10 people on your team, if they're focused on bringing you an additional revenue stream, factor that into your ROI. So I encourage that these 4 are key metrics that you should think about looking at ROI through the lens of, while remembering the pitfalls of how you should not be blindsided by some of how those metrics can be completely lopsided.
Interesting, really interesting. I think a lot of us are nodding our heads here because it kind of makes so much sense as a business owner. So Eden, I'm going to kind of move towards you next. So we're looking at frameworks, and when we look at frameworks when we're building AI-enabled apps, I'm more concerned about the data governance, the privacy, and security. So with AI in the mix, what data governance frameworks are essential? That's my question. How can organizations safeguard customer data and ensure model transparency? And what steps like policies, tools, or roles are needed to mitigate privacy and security risks in AI-enabled apps?
So a lot of the things have been mentioned here. I think in one of the previous questions, anything from thinking about agents as people that have access permissions to certain things but not others. Data minimization, I think, makes a lot of sense, right? Least privilege principle, those types of things. Security, so there is the whole privacy thing, and I think we should think about AI, maybe the simplified way is just treat it as any agent, a human agent for that matter, and distrust it just as you would distrust the intern that you hired into the company last week, okay? And of course, as you give that intern more power and responsibility, you would naturally distrust it a little more, right? With power comes responsibility. So apply that thinking to AI just as you would to human beings. Security, though, is something that often goes unnoticed or not as noticed as it should with generative AI. Gen AI creates and exposes some novel attacks that, or I think is vulnerable to types of attacks that didn't exist before. Your system prompt, I see some developers thinking about it as the holy grail, as their point of differentiation, what they essentially tell the LLM, those secret instructions that the user is never supposed to see. Well, newsflash, every system prompt can be leaked easily, okay? So from a security standpoint, do not consider that to be something confidential. Malicious prompt injections, that's a huge issue. Like, we're starting to feed our emails into these LLMs, and it's good for some things, okay? But it also means that as soon as the LLM is, for lack of a better term, jailbroken, that email is now in the hands of the attacker or whoever can control and steer the LLM to do what they want. some prompt injections, data poisoning. That's a big thing too. We used to think of data as one thing. That still applies, like all the old problems are still there, nothing went away. But now, what if you use this data for training? What are the repercussions? What if somebody else uses your data for training? What if somebody else uses your outputs for training their own models? So if you're in the security industry or cybersecurity roles, I think you have a lot of job security. And for the rest of us, I think we have many new headaches to worry about. But it's all going to be worthwhile because there is no doubt the productivity gains are tremendous. I don't think we've had any such technology in terms of the massive disruption in the last, like, not in my lifetime at least, maybe when IT first became a thing in the 70s, I'm not sure. So it is a game changer, but security-wise, like everybody really doesn't. If you're using an LLM, you have to get up to speed with all the new security headaches this thing is causing all of us.
I'd like to add to that, right?
Yeah, sure.
Privacy is very close to my heart. I've spent the last decade working in this space. I'd like to leave you all with kind of two thoughts, right? The first is there is no delete button to what's in a data model unless you undertake relearning of your entire model from scratch, which is not feasible given the size of models that we're undertaking today.
By the way, researchers are working on that. I think we'll have that in.
That's why I said today. But I think the second point that I want to leave you with is, as your models are trained today, it's going to exist for perpetuity for a long period of time, and we don't even know the kind of risk vectors that are going to come up in the future that will result in risks based on what your data has done today, right? And when you don't have a powerful delete button just yet, that just compounds the risks that you're taking. So think about building privacy and security into your data. That's foundationally a good way of dealing with privacy and security from a ground-up standpoint, and that protects you for the future as well, not just how we understand risk and compliance as it exists today.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you for adding to that. So next question here, Prakash. This one's for you. So AI is reshaping the tech vendor landscape a lot these days. So how are partnerships and alliances evolving? For example, should companies worry about vendor lock-in or instead leverage multi-cloud and polyglot AI strategies? How can a partner like Quadrant help navigate a multi-vendor AI ecosystem?
So again, it's an interesting thing, being the vendor ecosystem, right? Customers are looking at opportunities to shift when they have a problem. And yeah, vendor lock-in, earlier you would see, whether it's a product or IT services, you will go on a 3-year, 5-year, 7-year, 10-year deal. But those kind of things are not going to happen in the future. Right? Customers are looking at more plug-and-play approach these days, and of course, multi-cloud approach. So you take any big enterprise today, they are not just on single cloud, and they are looking at, even if they are on single cloud, they're looking at multi-cloud architecture. So the answer is yes. Now the question is, how are we going to do that, right? Customers should look at modularizing their architecture and build the whole data abstraction layer on top of it. And they don't have to look at locking into one solution. So when you're thinking of the whole architecture, they look at how can I make it mobile between cloud providers, and who are the vendors who are going to help me in it, and more importantly, which vendor is going to give me the best business outcome. So that's a bigger challenge today, right? So the whole vendor pricing is based on the consumption, and it's not based on business outcome. So again, that landscape is changing as well, that customers are going to look at, hey, what is the business outcome I'm going to get, and I'm okay to pay for that. So rather than I'm paying a set of resources, or I'm paying based on consumption and whatnot. So you will see these AI native companies are also changing, and if you have seen a lot of these new tools that are coming out here, It is not based on resources. It is not based on consumption. It is purely based on the business outcomes. I think that's what is going to happen, and everyone is going to this will take years or few years, but you will see even most of the vendors, and whether your product or platform or service, it doesn't matter. Everyone are going to move towards this direction, and you see some early signs of that.
Awesome. And Bhavesh just wants to if looking at all of this adoption, AI adoption that we have, we come to the question of what organizational changes are required for AI adoption to succeed.
Yeah, so I'll basically touch upon, so we call it the 3 C's over here. First one is culture, second one is courage, third one is curiosity. Okay. When I say culture, it's very important for us to understand how you educate people in your organization on what AI is going to do. And very importantly, the training around it. So that's going to basically be the landscape shift on how people think about AI in the organization. If you're not able to do a good job over there, it's only going to increase a lot of anxiety on what you're going to do, what the roadmap is going to look like. So it's very important that you play a big role over there. The second one is courage. The courage aspect I'm mentioning over here is more about the champions in your organization that you're going to identify as you go through this AI shift, right? So not everyone is going to understand exactly what's happening, because in the school of AI, we are all kindergartners. Maybe someone is sitting in the first grade somewhere, right? So you need to start identifying all these champions and figuring out exactly where you're going to take the organization. And these champions are going to be the beachheads in your organization to lead change. The third one is curiosity. I say curiosity because you need to foster a culture of experimentation with AI. I think Eden and Pramod touched upon it really well. None of these are going to work really well, first of all, because the data that you have today is what is training your AI. The data, what you're going to have tomorrow, no one knows. So your AI is creating that data maybe for you from a set of evaluation data sets that you have today, and then you're recreating something on top based on a bunch of scenarios, but you really don't know what's coming there, right? The prompt injection attacks that Eden was talking about, so many things could go wrong. So it's very important that you have the foster of experimentation, try to create an experimentation platform. So evaluation data sets become really key. The Klarna attacks that Pramod was talking about, very important to know how you're going to perceive things. So you cannot just go and do I would say, a big bang of an application to say, okay, let's go 100% in the organization, see how it's going to go. Because yes, being a security and governance expert, you could have a lot of job security, but all you need is that one big mistake. You're out the door. Next minute.
That's an interesting thing. So now let me just put this across to all of you guys. I would like to learn, want you to share some brief examples of real world transformations where AI powered automation within an app delivered measurable results, and what lessons emerged from it. Something that you all have come across through your years of experience, something that you all have heard about.
I have the first mover advantage, Bhavesh.
I don't think so there is any more first mover over here. We've spoken enough. We've hit all the topics here in the bell curve. Let's see if we can figure something out there. So I'll take the example of the experimentation culture that I'm talking about, right? So I'm part of an initiative where trying to build experimentation platform and try to take it to multiple partners. As part of that, since you are expanding your experimentation scope and you're building a platform, it's not that one team uses it. You're going to have many people use your experimentation platform, right? So your ease of onboarding plays a big role, first of all. The second thing is when you onboard and you start having your own experiments that you want to run for a particular feature that you want to roll out, there could be other people doing the same thing in the organization. So I feel AI being fed with the right kind of information is going to help tone down the time taken to retire or mature a particular experiment to be production ready. So I feel I'm trying to play a big role over there as agents come in, right? Like we we want organizations to think about experimentation and how you're going to handle data. The second thing over there is you could be doing all those things. It's very important that when things go wrong, how you're trying to basically massage the data and try to tell people that, yeah, you ran this experiment for this 20% user base, but then a similar experiment was run for 60% of user base, and they saw these issues which you haven't yet hit. So we recommend you take these inputs into consideration. Will help you go really fast. So that gives you more confidence in the tooling system. So, and we have seen these actually change the landscape of build, wherein it usually takes about 6 weeks for you to mature an experiment, but the culture over here is fail fast. In 2 days, you know that that's not going to work. So, and more importantly, organizations need to start celebrating failures rather than just thinking about success. So when you do not celebrate your failures as part of this culture, people will not feel like experimenting. They're trying to push features out, and then you essentially are at the job security risk of throwing something in there, right? So it's very important in the AI landscape, because you can write 10 agents in the same time where you are basically building one application like 3 years ago, right? So might as well spend the time, experiment multiple things, and try to figure out before. And let's say that I did 10 experiments and 9 of them failed. I think people should basically have an applause around it, because you know it failed and you know the reason why it failed, and that will make the 10th one super strong.
Anyone else?
Yeah.
Even wants to go ahead.
Yeah, so I can give some pretty interesting example that I think from a technological side will help you appreciate some of the progress that's been made. So one of our customers is Warner Brothers, and they produce a lot of TV shows and stuff. And every studio needs to produce captions for their shows, right? You could have produced captions 10 years ago using some form of AI. You can say, it's just a speech recognition thing, right? You feed in audio and you get captions out. That's not a particularly new technology. But interestingly, if you use those technologies of 5 years ago, the error rate was so high that it was counterproductive to do it. Today, with multimodal AI, you essentially feed the AI with the entire episode, the text, the video, the audio. And what Warner Brothers get out of this is something like a 5x productivity boost. The human who used to do the captioning now just looks at it and occasionally needs to shift something around, but the AI really gets to the essence of the story. So it doesn't just look at the last 10 seconds of audio, it basically watches the series as it produces the captions, and it makes for a huge difference. So I think multimodal AI turns a lot of tasks that you would think were in the AI domain from being counterproductive to particularly useful.
I'll just add an example again from the last couple of days. Another fintech startup, interestingly again starts with a K, Kalshi. They recently released a full 30-second advertisement that was a video with audio, all generated by AI. That's really power coming in there, right? You don't need a production house. You don't need actors. You don't need to go through that cycle of 3 months to get an ad out there. It's go there, generate something, test it. If it works, fantastic. If it doesn't, iterate, go from there. It's just super powerful what is happening there. And who would have thought finance domain is where a lot of the innovation is happening? It's very, very interesting, right?
I'll just extend fintech because you talked about real world examples and applications, and we all could see every day thousands of examples. But I'll give you one such example, extension of the fintech, because that's close to me, what I am building, right? So what AI is doing is democratizing whatever was not available for people earlier, right? Like everyone now has access to information, tools, and whatever. So same way, if you look at financial advisory, right, it was a remote thing, right? Like there was a statistics, the less than 20% of the people who have access to professional financial advisory because they think that it is some ultra rich person's thing and we try to do on our own, right? And then the statistics also says people who do on their own have 3% lesser than the S&P 500 index and they lose the market. But we all have the ego of, hey, I am great, I will do on my own. But the statistics is very clear, right? And because you don't have access to professional financial advisor because of, access to the right person or the trust, or it could be expensive or whatever. There are many reasons. But what AI has done, right now, AI is bringing in the whole financial advisory to you. Now, everyone can get their personal CFO. Everyone can, and the personal CFO is not just a financial advisor. Imagine in your pocket, you have a financial advisor, a tax advisor, a portfolio manager, all combined, everything to your finance and wealth, available 24/7 and tailored and hyper-personalized to you. And that's what is possible with AI. So the way we are addressing is, you don't know, you will be just using an AI, whether you're talking, but an AI talking to you or AI chatting with you. But behind the scene, today what is possible is a team of agents, right? One tax planner agent, one tax advisor agent, one market research, equity research specialist, one a portfolio expert and whatnot. So they are all working behind the scene and then trying to serve you, but you don't know. For you, it is like a simple, hey, I ask a question, it understands me, it proactively guides me, nudges me, and all of that. So that is what is possible. And this is like extension of the fintech example and more real world, and that's what I am building, right? So you can like try to visualize what is possible, what was not possible earlier is becoming possible, becoming democratized to everyone.
I want to add something to what Pramod said. The 30-second ad which happened. So think about it, where it's going to go. There are many social media platforms and people like to scroll on videos, right? Based on all your personal information, the videos are getting generated on the fly. Just think about privacy. Just think about trust, safety. So many things in play, right? So while you can think, yeah, people could basically roll things out like that, it's going to cause a lot of commotion when you don't have all these checks in place.
That's where your guardrails come in place. Totally. So now just moving it towards a very interesting question that would make sense to me and probably a few of us who are out here. We're looking at, Prakash, this is one for you. What should enterprises look in for an AI integration partner? How do we, implementation partners like us, add value when it comes to bridging the gap between business goals and technical deployment?
I strongly think any IT services provider should be able to talk both the AI and business language fluently, right? So there are so many technical capabilities available. In AI, if everyone can easily build applications, what is going to fall short is the business and domain expertise. If someone can drive the business outcome using AI and clearly articulate and demonstrate that to a customer, right, that is what is going to drive business. And if you purely talk about earlier it used to be purely capabilities. Hey, I have this capability, I have these many people and whatnot, those days are gone. Right, today, what is the business outcome that you are going to make, and can you articulate that? Like, for example, in some of the recent examples in Quadrant we did, like you start the whole conversation, discovery conversation with the business outcome, right? And with the business outcome, how do you drive your data maturity and strategy? That is core of the whole AI. And next is how are you going to go on? And all of this is what is going to bring the trust, right? And the confidence in front of the customer. So I think I strongly believe this is what is needed going forward.
Thank you so much. So I'm coming to the last question of today, and Eden, I'm going to push this towards you. So we're looking beyond current capabilities. We're looking at the next frontier of technologies. And now I'm looking at how businesses can stay ahead of the curve and prepare the application roadmaps for the next 2 or 3 years. So I'd like to know your take.
There are several interesting trends that I think businesses should prepare for. Maybe the overarching concept is something that was coined as LLM-inflation. Basically, there is a deflation, not inflation. We're used to inflation in the last few years, but When it comes to serving costs for foundation models, there is a very steep deflation. The prices are collapsing by at least 80% per year in the last 3 years alone. What that means is, I think you touched on it a little bit, the costs today are not indicative of the costs tomorrow, but I have a different take on it. You're saying, a lot of that is subsidized, so maybe the costs are going to go up. No, the costs will continue to go down, and I'll tell you why, subsidies or not. The technological advance is just so mind-blowing that the cost per token will continue to drop. One testament of that is something that we showcased at Google I/O just a few days ago or 2 weeks ago, a model that we call Gemini Diffusion. So typical autoregressive models would be able to generate, say, 200 tokens per second, which is super fast compared to 2 years ago. And then we announced this thing, and now it produces 1,000 tokens per second. Same thing on the input side, which is how much data you can feed into your model. Now, what does that mean? You don't need to be a geek to celebrate that. You can be a business administrator too. It means that the costs of using more agents, more reasoning, integrating additional prompts into your agentic loop, all these costs will continue to spiral down, both because of technological advance, research advancements, and the fierce competition between all the AI labs. So don't worry too much about the cost of serving your first agentic use case. Don't worry too much about the length of your context. I would say design to get the business objectives that you need, even if it costs a little more today, because you can, I bet you, the curve will just continue to spiral exponentially. And for you, it means that these costs of running the LLMs at some point, they will be as marginal as making a REST API call.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone, for taking your time for today's discussion. So one thing is very clear here. AI isn't just about transforming applications. It's about transforming how we think. It's about thinking about data, trust, architecture, and above all, it's about people. So whether it's embedding intelligence into everyday workflows or ensuring governance at scale, what we're looking at is navigating a multi-vendor AI landscape. And what we've seen is that success requires not just the right tools, but the right strategy and the right culture. So thank you so much, everyone, and thank you for your time. In the lieu of time, we'll take questions to the networking and happy hour. So feel free to stay back, join us for the networking and happy hour. And on behalf of Quadrant Technologies, I'll thank you all for being here. Thank you so much, Pramod, Eden, Bhavnesh, Prakash, Indrajit. Ravi had to leave, but I'm glad all of us can make it back right to the cafeteria where we have some pizzas and some something to drink for you guys, and we can just continue this discussion going forward. Thank you so much, everybody.
I should not upload my W2s and get my tax returns done.
No, it'll happen automatically.
I like that. I need a W2. Thank you, Quadrant, for doing this.
It's awesome session, Lavina. Thank you for first time ever.
Right. Why don't they just interact with this?
We still have the thing, right?
Hi, Pramod. Did not hear the introduction.
I work in Walmart.
At Walmart. Hey, nice. Yeah, I was working with a colleague. Please come back.
Hey, how are you?